Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Continuing with human resource policies, this is lecture 2 of module 3. I'm Dr. Shoma Sengupta, Associate Professor Commerce, Kamla Nehru College, University of Delhi. We will discuss the scope of HR policies. The scope of human resource policies. The scope of HR policies is very wide and it covers all the different functions of HRM. We have already discussed the functions of HRM, and for each of those areas or each of those functions, you can have an HR policy. We will take up these areas one by one. The first one is employment policy, or in the area of procurement. So the following points can be covered under employment. One is minimum qualification for different posts. So that can be specified in advance in the employment policy. Again, it will reduce any kind of anomalies. Then sources of recruitment, from within or outside. If from outside, which are the sources we are going to take, that is mentioned in the employment policy. Then the selection criteria. What kind of selection criteria you will have? How many steps you will cover? Like in big organizations, they pass a candidate has to pass through different stages, right from preliminary interview to the final stage of appointment letter, and in between there are tests, there can be interview, and there can be medical examination. But in many other jobs in small organization, they do not go by the whole selection procedure. So what selection procedure is suitable for your organization, that will be there in your employment policy. Then the probation period. So how much will be the probation period? Generally it is 1 year or 2 years, and after that the employee may become permanent. So that is mentioned in advance in the circumstances in which the probation period may be increased. So all these things will be mentioned in the employment policy. Then the reservation. This is a big issue because you have to abide by the laws of the land, and accordingly you have to make provision for, say, and it depends upon whether it is private sector or a government sector organization. So there will be reservation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, other backward classes, then your physically handicapped, then local people. All these will be most of the time, if it is a government organization, of course they have to follow this reservation policy, and in certain private organization also to some extent reservation policies are maintained, and that will be mentioned in the employment policy. Then the retirement age and criteria for retirement, that will be also mentioned in the employment policy. So generally it is maybe 58 or 60 or 62, whatever it is, no anomaly should be there, and that's why it is mentioned in the employment policy. Okay, the next is training and development. So you can have policy for training and development as well. What all is included in that? One is training objectives. Why training and development should be undertaken in the organization? It should not be just for the heck of it, that every year we conduct a training and development program, say in the month of February, or we have to finish off the project, and that's why we having a training or development program. The specific purpose of training and development program should be clearly mentioned, and for that purposes only you should have a training and development program. Then attitude towards training. What kind of attitude is there of the top management or the line managers? What they want to gain out of training and development program? Are they really interested in developing the employees or their knowledge, or just to finish off their budgets? That should be very clear. Then basis of training. what kind of training will be imparted, whether it is a kind of an remedial training, or it is to impart knowledge to the new employees, or if for any other purpose to develop managers. You are having a development program that should be written in the training and development policy. Then the training methods on the job or of the job method will be used, that should be mentioned in the policy. Then development programs, there are so many development programs. What are the programs you are intending to undertake for your employees, that will be mentioned in the training and development policy. Then opportunities for growth and career development, what you expect, what are the expected outcome of the training and development, that should also be mentioned in the training and development program. Now, another area where you should have HR policy is transfers and promotion. You know that this is a very critical area, because it may, if it goes wrong, it may lead to heartburns among the employees. And that's why you should have a clear-cut transfer policy as well as the promotion policy. When we talk about transfer, what all should be included in the policy is rationale of transfer. Why transfer at all? Whether it is for the purposes of, say, production, improvement of production, or for certain disciplinary action, or if employees themselves they are asking for it, everything should be mentioned in the rationale of transfer. Then periodicity of transfer, how frequently a person will be transferred, length of service in each job, everything is important. Then basis of transfer, what will be the basis of transfer, whether it is on the basis of, say, requirement or production requirement. So from people from surplus areas will be transferred to the shortage areas, or to relieve some person from hard tasks, or a kind of a disciplinary action, or if it is asked by the employee themselves because of some health reason or family reasons, that should be mentioned. Now this is important because transfers, as I told you, that it may lead to heartburns, and it leads to lots of adjustments to be undertaken by the employee, because there will be substantial change in his say family life position, and he has to shift from one place to another, and because of that transfer should be undertaken carefully. Then promotion is the next. Promotion policy is also very important. We have to first of all decide whether the higher position will be filled up through promotion from within the organization, or people will be recruited from outside. If it is from within the organization, then people working in the organization will be motivated to work hard. So you have to keep that in mind. Then what will be the criteria of promotion, whether it's seniority will be the criteria of promotion, or merit, or any combination of the two. Next is the extent of change in position and pay, which you with every promotion, that should also be mentioned in the promotion policy. Another very crucial area where a policy should necessarily be framed is compensation. We know that if we look into the industrial relations history of India, most of the disputes occurred because of this compensation only. So a clear-cut compensation policy is a must for any organization. In that, what should be included? Job evaluation, the criteria of job evaluation, how it will be conducted, how you will find out the worth of the jobs and decide the pay to be given to it. The basis of wage payment, whether time rate or piece rate. The time of payment of wages or salaries, by what date you are going to pay the wages and salaries. Now here you have to follow the Payment of Wages Act as well. Then minimum wages and salaries to be paid, and also no discrimination between male and female, because two acts are there, Minimum Wages Act and Equal Remuneration Act. So that should be included in your internal policies also. Then the incentive plans, like different types of incentive bonus plans are there, profit sharing, employee stock option plans, whether they should be there in the organization, to what extent, that will be mentioned in the compensation policy. Then the non-monetary rewards which has to be given to the employees, like recognition and all, that should also be mentioned in the compensation policy. And finally, the compensation policy should always take care of internal equity and external parity, that is within the organization the it has to maintain the equity, as well as the pay scale should be comparable to the what market is paying. Next policy is regarding working condition. In that, clearly mentioned should be the working hours, and of course again you have to take care of the acts or legislation regarding that. Then the rest intervals, the number and frequency of rest intervals, and also because you have to relieve the employee from fatigue. Then overtime work and the money to be given for overtime, the safety rules, it should be in place. Then the atmosphere, what kind of humidification, exhaust, ventilation should be there in the organization. Then lighting provisions, also the policy regarding space and sitting area for the employees, and also the leave rules. All this should be clearly specified in the working conditions policies. Welfare and service policy includes the type of services which the organization intends to provide to the employees, like housing, transport, medical, educational facility for the children of employees, subsidized lunch or products. So this should be clearly mentioned in the policy, what all you are going to provide to the employees. Then the social security measures which the organization will have, whether provident fund, pension, gratuity, group insurance, all these will also be mentioned in the welfare and service policy. Then financing of employee services and to what extent they will be financed. And finally the perquisites for executives, how much will be paid by the organization, what perquisites will be given, and how it will be taxed. Finally, the policies regarding industrial relations. Now, this is a very important area in the sense that, as we have discussed, many of the disputes, many a times they occur in different organizations, and grievances, if they are not handled on time, it may lead to, or it may become a dispute, and mandates will be lost, strikes and lockouts may happen. So industrial relation policy should be framed and it should be in place. What all should be included in that? One is grievance handling procedure. Clear-cut grievance handling procedure should be there in the organization. Suggestion schemes, and this should not be only for the heck of it. You have to look into those suggestions and work on it. Then recognition of trade unions, as there are multiplicity of trade unions nowadays, any person can form a trade union. So the management has to decide with whom they have to deal with. So the criteria for giving recognition to the trade unions in the organization with whom you will interact, and the leaders of those trade union will be invited for different meetings. Then disciplinary rules, they should be framed and they should be part of industrial relation policy, so that every employee should clearly know about it. And in fact, they may be framed with the participation of employees representatives as well. Then workers participation in management, then collective bargaining, the whole procedure and rules regarding it should be mentioned in the policy. Then dispute settlement, how the dispute will be settled, that should be a integral part of the IR policy, like a mediation provision, conciliation, arbitration, adjudication, and how to deal with it, that will be mentioned in the industrial relation policy. To summarize this lecture, we can say that the scope of HR policies is very wide and includes policies for employment, training and development, transfer and promotion, compensation, working condition, welfare and services, and industrial relations. You can refer to the book by Flippo, by C.B. Gupta, by Dale Yoder. Thank you, students.